a center of excellence. It is a pleasure to have you all here for a presentation and discussion of Turkey's role as a link between Middle East and Europe, with a true expert. And not only because she is Turkish, but I will tell you about her background in a second. If you have not been to Turkey, Turkey is a fascinating country, right? It used to be the seat of the Eastern Roman Empire, then the Byzantine Empire, then the Ottoman Empire. You can see here an eminent country. And Istanbul is truly fascinating also because it is literally located on the two continents. Maybe you can say a little bit more about that later as well. So in the coming hour, we have a discussion with Professor Müge Aknur from Dokuz Eylül University, I hope I got this somewhat right, in İzmir, Turkey. And then you have the chance to ask her questions regarding her talk. Before we start, and before I introduce Professor Aknur, I want to thank the European Commission for funding our activities, as well as our SIPA, the School of International Public Affairs, especially the Dean's Office, the Broad and Green Lecture Series, Pedro Botta, who is here today. In addition, I'd like to thank our other co-sponsors, the Department of Politics and International Relations, the European and Eurasian Studies Program with Professor Tatiana Kostadinova, thank you for being here, and the Jaffer Center of Muslim World Studies with Professor Mohadi Mesbari. A particular thanks, of course, goes to our helpers that are putting everything here together from SIPA, especially Madame Christine Thiel. And of course, our guest today, Professor Müge Aknur. Professor Aknur is Professor of Political Science in the Department of Political Science and International Relations at Dokuz Eylül University in İzmir. She received her master's in International Relations from George Washington University and her PhD in Political Science from McGill University in Montreal, Canada. Her research interests include democracy and the rise of populism. Her publications include a number of articles and book chapters on these topics, and most recently she edited the book Democratic Consolidation in Turkey, as well as co-edited the book The Rise of Populist Radical Right in Western Europe. So you can see here this is a broad range of topics, and I hope that you probably can only skim a little bit today, but we're very much looking forward to the next hour and 50 minutes. So thank you very much for coming. Yes, of course, Professor Chanabak here. Without her, you wouldn't be here. It's from the economics department. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me well? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So Markus did all the job, but I had a list to thank too. But I think it's the same list still. Thanks to Markus and Christine for the organization, and Canan Balkır, and also to Professor Mesbari, Professor Steinmetz, and also Pedro Botta at the SIPA. So, well, it's wonderful to be here. I'm so happy to be here. It's an honor for me. My name is Müge Aknur, and I'm a full professor at Dokuz Eylül University. It's a public university in Turkey. Actually, Turkey is the word we use, but so many years we said Turkey, and it's not easy to switch, but it is now the last couple of years, it is Türkiye, which means land of Turks. And so, I teach at the Department of Political Science and International Relations, and well, my map starts with the location of Turkey in the world, but I will get back to that. I just want to show you where I come from. I come from İzmir. It's the third biggest city in Turkey. I'm trying to find my lines, but anyway, you can see İzmir over there. I put a picture of mine with my students. I love this photo. There's quite a variety of students with shorts and with headscarves. It's a combination of everything. It is almost the month of May. It was a tough course I was teaching. It was called Turkish Politics Through Documentaries. After 12 assignments and 2 quizzes and 1 paper, 1 presentation, they were fed up with me. And it was time to give them a reward. And it was just before a picnic. So a lot of guys like their beards. That's the fashion in my country. They look more macho like that, but they are still my little students. I love them the way they are. I just wanted to show you where I am from. Well, İzmir is a city like Miami because we are by the sea, by the Aegean Sea. We love to swim. And I feel the same here in Miami. The sea or the ocean brings a lot of freedom and a more relaxed life. And the same in my town too. We have this relaxed life, and here I am standing with my students, happy that the semester is over because it's already May and it's hot there. Anyway, this is an old photo of my town where I live in, Izmir, the third biggest city with 86 million people living. We are 4.5 million. It is still a big city, third biggest city. These are old cars and old buses. There are more high-rises right now. In those days, there were a couple of them, but it's a lovely city to live. In 1 hour, we can go to the beaches, and we both love swimming, right? Swimming is very important. Well, let's get to our main subject. So, in general, I will talk about Turkey as a country between Middle East and Europe. That's my subject. The way I will go is, after giving a general introduction, I will talk about Turkey's relations with Europe, but mainly with the EU. Then I will talk about Turkey's relations with the Middle East, and then, but under certain topics, and then I will try to tell you why Turkey is a bridge between Europe and Asia. But if you look at this map, you can actually see, I mean, it is really between, this is Europe, this is Asia, it is between the two continents, and it's a tough location. 3% of the country, which you will get a better view in a bigger map, is called Thrace, and that's in the continent of Europe. 97% of the country is in the continent of Asia. It's called Anatolia. So, I mean, when you live in Istanbul, you live both in Asia and Europe. And I asked my cousins, isn't that wonderful? Every morning you get up in Europe and you travel to Asia to go to work, or vice versa. They say no. You have to get up at 5 o'clock to get to your work, which starts at 9 o'clock because of the traffic. But as a person from Izmir, when I go there, I always find it exciting when I cross the bridge. Then I say, hey, I'm going from Europe to Asia. For them, it's a daily routine. It doesn't matter. But anyway, this is really a tough neighborhood. Life is complicated. I mean, yeah, Tatiana is laughing with all our neighbors. Well, Bulgaria is a nice neighbor. We don't have serious problems with Bulgaria. To the west, because we have a variety of neighbors. Like if you are Austria, you will have neighbors from Europe. If you are Spain, you will have neighbors from Europe. But we have Balkan neighbors, we have Middle Eastern neighbors, and we have neighbors from after the collapse of Russia, that's Georgia and Armenia. Now, here Greece is our western neighbor. Actually, we eat the same food, we act the same, we look the same, except the religion, but we do have some conflicts, which are resolvable. These are the islands, Greek islands. If you are a good swimmer, when you start swimming from Izmir, you have to put your passport in your swimming suit, because you can find yourself on a Greek island. That happened very often. Because recently there was this American family, it's a real story, which the American consulate told me. There was this American family swimming in Samos, and there was a lot of waves, currents. The father and the daughter found themselves in Kuşadası, in Turkey, while the mother was in Samos, and it was a chaos, of course. Two people in swimming suits are stepping into Turkish soil. They say, who are you? We were swimming, and the current took us. So it happened, it's a real thing, and then finally the family got together. It was wonderful. But that's one issue, but we have more serious problem related to Cyprus, which I will get into details later. But then when we look at our neighbors in the northwest, Georgia and Armenia, I won't get into those details, but these three are countries with a lot of troubles in their own life. Syria, they have just gone through a long civil war that started in 2011, and we have 566 miles borders with Syria, and now there's a new government, but we don't know what it's going to be like. So life is difficult, and on top of it, a lot of refugees from Syria came to Turkey. The official number is 3.6 million, but we don't buy this argument because we feel like it's about 8 million. They gave birth in Turkey too. So 8 million is not an exaggeration. We do have around 8 million refugees from Syria. Iraq is, after Saddam Hussein, Iraq is trying to put its own house together by struggling. Our only problem is there is an autonomous Kurdish authority there. We are having some problems with them, which I will get into details. Iran is a country we buy a lot of natural gas and oil, but it's always a problematic country in the world with its nuclear capacities. Is it really for good or for bad? We don't know, but we do have to keep nice relations with those three countries, which are always in some kind of chaos. So sometimes I feel like I wish we were Iceland, you know, in the middle of the sea, surrounded with the sea. Life would be easy, but they have volcanoes. They have those volcanic eruptions. So anyway, I'm just kidding, but yeah, this is your location matters a lot, where you are located. You can be the most peaceful country in the world, but you are surrounded with a lot of events going on. So when you look at Turkey, you can see that this little part, it's a European country. It's an Asian country because of that 97%. And it's a Black Sea country, it's an Aegean country, it's a Mediterranean country, most importantly, it's a Middle Eastern country. So we have a lot of these. We have everything together. Even with the food we eat, even with the culture we have a bit of the East, we have a bit of the West, we have the combination. My family comes from Macedonia, Skopje, that's where they were born during the Ottoman period. Even my father, who was born in 1920. But if you are coming from this area, then your parents could easily be from Syria, Iraq, or Iran. So that's how it shows we are not like the United States here. You have quite a combination of different cultures. Ours is much more limited compared to you, but we are a small version of the United States, I can say. Anyway, so now we keep saying, are we European? Are we Asian? What are we? I don't know what we are, but because Europeans say, you are not European, you are Middle Easterns, you are more similar to Arabs. No, we are not, because it's a different ethnic group, we are a different ethnic group. We are Turkish, we don't even speak Arabic, they speak Arabic, we speak Turkish, which belongs to different language groups. English and Arabic come from the same group, we come from a different group. We come from Finnish and Hungarian, Ural Altaic Mountains, and the other is, what was it called? I forgot the name, but all these languages, they are Indo-European languages, yeah. Anyway, now, here we go. So when we look at Europe, yeah, Turkey is an outsider. This is Europe, this is Turkey. It is the very eastern side of Europe. When we look at Asia, well, it's an outsider again. It is the most western part of Asia. But what are we? Well, originally we are Asian. These Turkish people came from Mongolia. In the 9th century, they had all these women. Some went to Finland and to the north, some went to Africa, but a lot of them came to Anatolia. So Turkish people are originally Asian, but there's not much left. Actually, the way our eyes, we look like Chinese at one time, but it's gone right now. Are they European? Well, yes, they are European because this Ottoman Empire that lasted for 622 years, that's a long time to last. It's not as big as Roman Empire, but it's a huge empire all the time. Look at this time period from 1299, 1918, that's the end of the First World War. So this is the peak point of the empire. Look at Balkan Peninsula. This was under the Ottoman control, and that means, yeah, we are part of Europe too, from our history. We lived with Europeans. If you consider Balkans as Europeans, of course they are. Yes, that's it. But this empire got smaller and smaller. Eventually, it was a great empire. When they occupied the place, they let the people to enjoy their freedom, their religious freedom and their administrative freedom. They kept the same king. The only thing they did was they didn't know how to colonize. It was not an industrialized empire. They just collected taxes, that's all. So that's important because if the Ottomans forced the Europeans or the Balkan people to become Muslims, at this moment half of Europe will be consist of Muslims, and it is not. It is quite a tolerant empire. Of course, there's always violence. In the last 200 years, when the empire was collapsing, there was a lot of violence going on, but this is all over the world, not only by Ottoman Empire. French did the same, British did even worse, and so on, so forth. Well, what happened after this empire collapsed? The empire collapsed at the end of the First World War. It was on the same side with the Germans and the Austrian-Hungarians, and they lost the war. And today's, well, actually there was nothing left. This last Sultan was not around either. What happened was a commander from Ottoman army, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, this is a special last name given to him, father of the Turks. He started War of Independence and then established today's Republic of Turkey, or Türkiye. So it is from the ashes of the Ottoman Empire, it's much smaller, and everybody thought that, oh, Mustafa Kemal, he's going to be the next Sultan. No, he did something completely different. He modernized and westernized the country. He established Republic of Türkiye in 1923. This modernization was through a series of political, legal, cultural, social, and economic reforms. These were dramatic reforms, unbelievable reforms. It was not easy to digest them. These reforms were changing from Sharia, Islamic law, to a secular law. My favorite one is giving rights to women. I love that one. So women received rights to be elected and to be elected as early as 1928. So all the laws have been changed, and he wanted free, fair, competitive elections, which was not easy. It took 27 years to get to multi-party system, but he's the one who changed the whole system, because why Turkey is different from the rest of the Middle East, thanks to Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. But one thing is, these dramatic reforms, they were top-down reforms. It takes time to, my favorite word is to digest them, or adapt them, adopt them. It took time, and it is still taking time. We have some problems with secularism. We have some problems with establishing a nation state, but still, he did a great job. We owe him a lot, we love him a lot, he did a great job. Anyway, Republic of Türkiye, presidential system since 2018, it used to be parliamentary before. Capital is Ankara, although, as Markus said, Constantinople or Istanbul was the capital city of the Roman Empire, Eastern Roman Empire, Byzantine Empire, and Ottoman Empire. Why not Istanbul, Constantinople and Istanbul, the same name? Why it was not the capital city of the Republic of Türkiye? Because Ankara is centrally located. Istanbul is always dangerous with all the Bosphorus Strait, one side in Asia and one side in Europe. Well, in miles, 300,000 square miles, it is the size of Texas, usually is the example we give compared to USA. Compared to European countries, Turkey is a big country size-wise. Compared to Asian countries, it's small. It depends with whom you compare. Well, GDP per capita, GDP in general, 1.3 trillion is not bad. It is the 17th biggest economy in the world. This is brand new from 2024 World Bank results. 2025 is not around yet. It doesn't make it a wonderful economy. We do have economic problems with high inflation rate, but that's great. But GDP per capita is not that wonderful, 15,000. But compared to rest of our Middle Eastern neighbors, not the rentier states, Turkey is in good shape, quite comfortable. The population, that's the official number of Turkey, but it's usually 86 million, 87.5 says our government. 99% Muslims, yes, 1% a small Jewish population, and a small Christian population that are originated from Greece. So it's a small population. We used to have more non-Muslim population. It's a member of NATO, which is important. That makes Turkey integration, that puts Turkey as an integration with Western defense system, but it is not a full member of EU, but it's an associate member of EU. So it's a middle-sized power, but an important regional power between two continents. When I talk about factors shaping Turkish foreign policy, this location matters. When we look at the geographical and strategic location factors related to that, in the middle of industrialized West and energy-rich Middle East and Caspian Sea region, that makes Turkey very, very important. It is in the middle of these two areas because Asia and places like Iran and Azerbaijan are energy rich, and Iraq is an oil rich country, so that makes Turkey very important. It's a route between East and West, brings out security concerns. Yeah, it is not an EU member, but today it was the latest news. There is this concept called SAFE. It is a security arrangement in the EU. Now they are discussing whether Turkey should be a member or not, because Turkey is important. Although it's not an EU full member, but in a security organization under EU. They want to include Turkey. There's only one country that opposes, as you can imagine, our lovely neighbor Greece. Anyway, but tough neighborhood, because the conflicts are around us. It never stops. Just look at Iraq. Saddam first had a war with Iran for 8 years. Then after that war was over, Saddam started another war, invaded Kuwait. So these are only Saddam's wars. And then Syria went on, had a terrible experience of a civil war which never ended. It lasted forever from 2011 until 2023. It's a long civil war. So that had an impact in our life too. So living in Turkey is not easy. Cultural dimension, I have already mentioned that. So it has the culture of all these different regions: Asian, Middle Eastern, European, Balkan, Black Sea, Mediterranean. And I'm sure when we talk about the food in Bulgaria and Turkey, we will say chai and lots of common words or other food which we eat together because we lived together for such a long time. Well, when I look at the early years of Republic of Turkey, it was a newly established country. It was young, it was from Ottoman Empire, and what happened was, it had one purpose: not to be invaded again, and not to have another war, go to another war. Territorial integrity was very important, so Turkey established friendly relations with all the European countries and signed agreements. Westernization equal to modernization. European values were important. While the Middle East was not there at the moment. After First World War, French and British divided and ruled Middle East. Well, what happened was, during the Second World War, Turkey was still neutral, but it was almost impossible to be neutral. And this is one of my favorite photos: Turkish President İnönü. On one side, we have Churchill, on the other side, Roosevelt. They said you have to join the war. Turkey joined the war in the last 6 months, that was it. But it was never part of the war. But then it became a founding member of UN in 1945, member of NATO, which was not easy in 1952. First, NATO did not want Turkey, but eventually accepted Turkey and Greece, and it was part of the Western camp. There was a security partnership with US and Western European countries, and followed the pro-Western or pro-US foreign policy throughout the Cold War. So that was Turkey's thing. Now, the next issues I will talk about is first Turkey's relations with Europe, and that's particularly EU, and Turkey's relations with the Middle East, but very briefly. Every relation has a lot of dynamics and a lot of details. Well, these photos show the processes Turkey has gone through to become a full EU member. Turkey applied for EU as early as 1959, and it still is an associate member, not a full member. I don't think there's any country that applied as early as Turkey and was not admitted. These are all different processes. Let's look at the chronology. 59, it applied for EU, which was called EEC. Then 63, Ankara Agreement, additional protocol. Then once another application for full membership, which was rejected. But 95, Turkey and EU had a customs union, which was important. It's still valid. 99, it became a EU candidate. 2003, harmonization packages and constitutional amendments. So after becoming a candidate, the government before Justice and Development Party, before Erdogan's party, they started harmonization packages, constitutional amendments to democratize the country. Then Erdogan's Justice and Development Party worked hard. So 2005 was a big day for us. I remember those days, and you may, as the Jean Monnet chair of our EU department, we had a lot of celebrations, which was too early for celebration. 2005, formal opening of accession negotiations. Currently, accession negotiations are on hold. What happened? So many other countries were, because we wrote the book chapter comparing Turkey and Croatia, which were supposed to be full members at the same time, but it did not happen. Well, general factors and specific factors. First of all, this is what a taxi driver will tell you when you come to Turkey. These are the general factors. You don't have to become a full professor or anything. You know, those Europeans do not take us, that's the taxi driver, because it's a Christian club. We are Muslims, they don't like us. Well, there's a reality under this. It's not like, this is not true. It is true. They don't like us. It is, every single country is Christian, and there is not one country which is dominantly Muslim that's a member of EU. They are scared of that, even we from our historical past, from Ottoman Empire. Population is a significant issue, of course. 86 million or 87 million means that if Turkey becomes a full member, what happens is it will dominate the European Parliament in voting. It will dominate the Council of Europe in EU. It's going to have a dominant decision with other countries, not by itself, but European countries will not like that. I mean, Turkey making decisions in the European Parliament is not something that's their choice. Which is the country that's close to Turkey? Germany, 83 million population. And the rest of them have smaller populations. Well, Turkish immigrants, 5 to 6 million. Where are they? Mostly Germany. 1 million to 1.5 million are in Germany. 500,000, 300,000, 400,000. Austria, the Netherlands, Belgium, France, and there are other countries. They're all over the place, Switzerland, Italy too, but mostly Germany. It was 1960s, they invited Gastarbeiters, so guest workers. These guest workers were not guests anymore. They stayed there, they have the second and the third generation. So once the Turkey becomes an EU member, you know what happens? They think that you open all the gates, all the borders, Turks are flooding into Europe. Is that true? I don't think they will flood as much as they would in the past, because a lot of Turkish people are coming back. But the young generation, they love to go, but not like as simple workers. They want to do masters and PhD there. So I have written, like only last year, 60 reference letters for my students to go apply for German, Austrian, Italian, French universities, but they are right. Well, these are specific factors. Problems with democracy, yes. Turkey is a country which is in the struggle of democratization, but like the rest of the world, there is democratic backsliding all over the world, and Turkey is joining the club too from time to time. When it first applied, we were busy with military coups. Why is military intervening in politics? Our military is interesting. They say we are intervening in politics, we are intervening in democracy to bring democracy. And they were really sincere about it. These military interventions were never long, only 1.5 years, 2.5 years, but an intervention is an intervention, it's a coup. Recently, because of some movements, a protest in a park, which military station was going to be established, the reaction of the government, and there was another coup attempt by a religious organization, then the reaction of the government was not accepted well, and the current developments with the arrest of the mayors of the opposition party. But again, it's a country with ups and downs. I mean, there is some backsliding, but then there's a period we go back to democratization. This is my area of specialization. That's what I study. It's a tough subject to study in my country, and there's always a lot of hope going up. Anyway, this is one reason. The other reason is Cyprus issue. That's a very complicated issue, but to make the long story short, this island of Cyprus was under Ottoman control for 300 years. Then the British took it from the Ottomans as a result of some Ottoman debt, and it was under British rule until 1950s and 60s, when the Greeks said 20% population Turkish, 80% population Greek. Then the Greeks said, well, we want to annex it to Greece, enosis, unification. But Turks said, what about us? We are also living here. So Turkish government interfered in 74. We call it peace operation of Turkey, but the rest of the world calls it Turkish invasion of Cyprus. Our purpose was not an invasion. Our purpose was to just, oops, okay. Yeah, our purpose was to protect the Turkish people. So the island is divided into two. 1/3 is Turkish, 2/3 is Greek. This is called Northern Cyprus Turkish Republic. This is in Turkish. Southern Cyprus Greek Republic, but the rest of the world calls it Republic of Cyprus. And then Kofi Annan, at the time he was the UN General Secretary, he had a wonderful plan. He said, let's establish the unification of the island, but there was a referendum. Plan was endorsed by Turkish Cypriots, but rejected by Greek Cypriots. So now there are still two, but the problem with EU is EU admitted the whole island, not taking Turkish part into consideration, as an EU member, full member. So that frustrated the Turkish part, because now there's a huge difference between the north and the south. South gets all the goodies and all the funding from EU. Turkish part is not even recognized except the Republic of Turkey. So that's where the story starts. And that's one of the serious issues between Turkey and EU, because now Greek part is a full member. Whenever Turkey wants something, blocked, rejection, next to Greece. So that's our problem. This is another issue, which is again a complicated issue to talk about. It's about drilling natural gas in Eastern Mediterranean. Again, since Turkish Cyprus is not recognized, that creates a problem, because the Greek part, you know the word EEZ, exclusive economic zone. From your coastal waters, you can go 200 nautical miles, and anything under 200 nautical miles belongs to you. But we cannot go, because they don't even recognize the northern part of Cyprus. So that's the problem about the Greeks go. So it created a serious problem among the EU countries, and Turkey was put on a sanction, and they decided to back up. They decided not to do it, but this turned into a chaos among Turkey and EU. The next issue, refugee issue. It is 2015 refugee crisis. So many refugees. When Turkey opened the doors, Europeans were so scared. My Danish friend said, well, we could see refugees on the main road walking. We are so scared. This should not happen. Germany, Angela Merkel said, I can invite 1 million people. But then EU came and had a negotiation with Turkey in 2016. They said, you stop them, okay? They all stay in your country, we give you money. So it's really an ugly agreement, but it happened. We give you money means we will give you funding. So all these Syrians and others stay in your country, you take care of them, and you won't let them continue their journey to Europe. And at the time, the government accepted, and that's why we have 78 million Syrians living with us. Now they are part of our life. They are living, even the little kids speak perfect Turkish in a short time. They will not go back. Why not? Because there's not a wonderful life in Syria waiting for them. So it's the third option. That's what happens with immigrants. They either go back, or they go to a third country, or they stay in the first country they go, and they will stay with us, which is called assimilation. They are part of our life. So otherwise, this is what happened. I mean, these are the people in the Balkans, going from Turkey to Greece to Serbia to Hungary, then through Italy. Then they usually had one target, Germany. They love Germany because Germany will give them a nicer life, kind of. So this is my part, which is over about Turkey-EU relations. How am I doing with time, Markus? Kind of. Now,
half past. Yeah, you
I will. So I have another 10 minutes to go?
No, more than.
More
Yeah,
than.
more, yeah.
Perfect. So I can stop talking fast. I hope my English is, you can understand it. I have a Turkish accent, but Turkish accent is easy to understand usually, because it's not a heavy accent, but we have a different way of putting the sentences. We go down this way or up, but it's usually a clear English, kind of. That's what people told me when I was a student. I know you have an accent, but I don't understand from which country, is the expression I always heard. It's not like the Italians or our Greek friends, they have their heavy, nice accents, kind of. Ours is an accent, not understand. Well, according to European Parliament, this is 2025 report. This is the recent. Turkey's accession to EU is frozen because certain chapters are open due to democratic problems in Turkey and due to other problems in EU. It's not only Turkey's fault, it's also the EU's fault. Now it's frozen. There is no progress since 2018. Its accession process cannot be relaunched under current circumstances, democratic backsliding. That's what they have written. But on the other hand, it is this is the title, with or without not with Turkey, but not without Turkey. They still did it. It was the whole conversation. I started getting those messages in the morning. I belong to a group of women scholars who are studying Turkish foreign policy, and they said safe. There's a new, it's a security organization under EU. Should Turkey become a member or not? Majority of the countries says yes, it should. We need it. So what I'm saying is, not with Turkey, but not without Turkey either. That's what EU says. It's a strategic partner in security, trade, and migration. So, migration with R. A key NATO partner. It has a growing influence in Ukraine, Black Sea, and the Middle East, which we mentioned, we talked with Tatiana before. There is a lot of cooperation, and it's important in Black Sea. And in areas of climate, energy, security, trade, cooperation with Turkey must be deepened, and as a result, this 2016 agreement was done. So they still need Turkey. And when we look at the export and the main trading partners, export and import, it is actually #1 country for our exports is Germany. Everyone would imagine it would be a Middle Eastern country. No, it is Germany. And then #2 is UK, another European country, and Italy, another European country. We have USA, Iraq, but these 3 European countries. For imports, China and Russia comes first, but when we put Germany and Italy together, it is still important. So Europe is important for us. Now, let's get to Turkey's relations with the Middle East. That's completely a different subject from what I have been talking about, very briefly. Well, when Republic of Turkey was established, they were not interested in any of these Arab countries, not with Iran, but Iraq, Syria, because Turkey was trying to establish a neutral country and not to have anything with the past, but there was this problem. These countries did not exist before. They were all established after the Second World War. It was after the British and French mandates. So British and French, by using a ruler, they divided these countries, and we call it divide and rule policy. So it sounds like artificially built borders. So there's this new country, Syria, Iraq, Jordan. Israel is a different story. It was established earlier, not earlier, but by itself. It was not under mandate, maybe British mandate for a while, and Lebanon. So, what is Turkey's problem in early years? They were part of the Ottoman Empire, but they allied with the British during First World War. So we have this expression in Turkish, stepping at the back syndrome. So they stepped us at the back. We don't want any relations with them, kind of. And we don't have any relations with our past. We want to start a new life. But until the oil crisis of 1980s, then we had to hug our Middle Eastern neighbors all of a sudden, because Iraq is the country with cheapest oil. Then 2000s, we had those nice peaceful relations under the foreign minister, Davutoğlu. It was zero problem with the neighbors. He was doing a great job, but it didn't last long. Arab Spring showed up. So all these wonderful zero problems with the neighbors, following diplomatic methods to resolve problems, was over. Now 2010s and 20s, we are back to our security-oriented relations. Well, I can talk about Turkey's relations with Syria, with Iraq, with Iran separately, but that's going to take a long time. So I have those main factors that shapes our relations. Okay, the first one is it's a sensitive issue. It's a tough issue to talk about. It is Kurdish uprising. Who are these people? 25% of our population, Turkey's population, is consisted of Kurds. Well, what were they doing before? During the Ottoman period, they were part of the Ottoman life. In Ottomans, actually, the whole issue was Muslims and non-Muslims. Becoming a Muslim, you were the majority, you had a nice life. But now, after Republic of Turkey was established, it was established as a nation state. What are we going to do with Kurds? They are not Turks, but they are Muslims. But we are establishing a nation state. Well, they will be part of our life. But it all started in 1970s. This Partiya Karkaran Kürdistan Kurdish Workers' Party was established. They said we want a piece of land from Turkey, from Iraq, from Syria, from Iran, and maybe a little bit from Azerbaijan. Then, you know, territorial integrity is a very sensitive issue. When you establish a country out of the ashes of a huge empire, you want to hold it. You don't want to give a single land. I mean, nobody would like to give Texas back, or I mean, once you have your territories, you want to keep it. So we said, well, the rise of Kurdish nationalism is okay, but giving a piece of land is a red line. That's out of question. Well, then a kind of a guerrilla movement started, and they started attacking too many schools, civilians, and it caused a significant problem. So that became our soft part, we call it in Turkish, soft part of our stomach. So this was a great place to take advantage of Turkey and Turkey. So Syria did that during the Cold War. After the Cold War, during a Father Assad period, they trained the Kurdish guerrillas, sent them to us so they can attack. Even the head of the Kurdish group called Öcalan was living in a nice villa in Damascus. So Iraq has a similar problem like us, because they also have their Kurdish group. They also want to establish an autonomous region. But you know, Iran sometimes they used it as an instrument in their foreign policy, the Kurdish issue. Sometimes they gave up, but they were doing the same. So this issue has been a strategic issue to deteriorate our relations with Syria, Iraq, and Iran. Then comes Arab Spring. So this is the land which the Kurds dream about, taking peace of land, taking peace of Syria, taking peace of Iraq and Iran, and establishing the Kurdistan, which is not very easy to do because there are so many countries involved. So this is the origin of the problem, and he is the leader in prison on an island near Istanbul today. Establishment, attacks, and Syrian support, and there's a Kurdish regional government in Iraq, and the civil war in Syria. The second issue was, that was really upsetting. For so many years, these refugees, according to the agreements we signed, we are supposed to take them. So these people had no choice. They have to run to the next country, which is the closest country, Turkey. Some Syrian people went to Jordan. Some went to Lebanon, but majority of them came to Turkey, and they have to. You just have to take these people. I mean, it's very desperate, the way they are running away from their homes, and you have to give them a nice life. And so with the funding our government received, yes, we tried our best to give them a nice life, but nice life is never like the life you have in your own country, so it's never enough, but we tried our best. But then the war started in Syria. Now, this war was very complicated. Some countries were anti-Assad, some countries were pro-Assad. We were on the anti-Assad side. We wanted Assad to give freedom to people to start democracy, which is easy, which is not easy, and USA was on that side too. But the other side was, like, one side is Turkey, USA, and then comes Saudi Arabia. The other side is Russia, China, and then comes Saudi Arabia's rival, Iran. So, you know the word proxy war? It's a proxy war. It is not serious war anymore. It is everybody else fights their own fight in Syria, which is awful. Who is suffering? Syrian people are suffering. But our problem was, especially with the United States, we are on the same side, but we don't want the Kurdish groups in Syria to be supported, because then they have connection with our Kurdish guerrilla group, which helps the attacks. USA said, no, we are going to support them because they are fighting against ISIS. Complicated politics. In Turkish, we have this word, whose hand is in whose pocket? So who's fighting for whom, kind of. It's a funny word, but it explains. So it makes life very complicated. So more than 4 million refugees, civil war, and then another factor that shapes Turkish-Middle Eastern relations is, this is oil, but we also buy gas too. I mean, this is for gas, but there's a lot of oil. We buy our oil from Iraq. Iraq has the cheapest oil and the best oil, and we are dependent on the Middle East. So these three issues. Now, this is my last issue. You guys look bored now, look tired. We usually have 20 minutes of attention span, and we start, it's okay, 5 minutes. So this is the end. So I tried to explain as much as I can Turkey's relations with EU, why it cannot become an EU member. It's a lot of overwhelming information, I know, because we all have different areas of interest. Then, why Turkey is struggling with Middle East. I looked at the factors, refugees, PKK, and then I looked at the factors like what was in my last factory, and oil. And now, what can we do with Turkey between Europe and Asia? This is my main subject, but in order to come to this subject, I have to give you all of this background. Well, trade, yeah, it's great. With EU, these are the numbers. EU's fifth largest trade partner. 41% of Turkey's exported goods go to EU. 32% they come from EU. The numbers I won't spell them out, but you know, all these numbers are important. So EU is connected to Turkey by heart or by economics because of this. But look at this. Wow, Turkey is a country of oil pipelines, natural gas pipelines. Where do they come from? They come from sometimes from Kazakhstan, then sometimes from Iran, sometimes from Russia. Sometimes you try to bypass Russia and then make a longer route so Russia is not involved. So some of them are under construction, some of them are completed. Trans-Anatolian gas pipeline, TANAP, it's coming all the way from Azerbaijan, then going to Europe. Then comes Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan. This is one of the oldest pipelines, Iraq's pipeline. Then there's Blue Stream, then there's Turkish Stream on the way, and a lot of them are on their way to Europe. But most pipelines to Europe, they go from Russia, from the north, but after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, now what they prefer is pipelines going to Turkey. So Turkey is still located in a significant place. Well, this is Turkish Airlines map. I love it because it shows in 4 hours you can fly anywhere from Turkey. I was looking for it, but that was my best option, Turkish Airlines advertisement, because it really gives you an idea. Yeah, in a short time. This is a long flight, 12 hours, but in 4 hours, in 3 hours, you're all over the place. Like Turkey is close to major markets, Europe, Middle East, North Africa, Central Asia, within a 4-hour flight radius. And Turkey has a global market access at the nexus of Europe, Asia, Africa. It creates an efficient, cost-effective hub to major markets, so that location is still very important. And these are new, these are brand new, 2023. This is the dream of Iraq. Iraq is dreaming about establishing Iraq's development road project that will, it's like a railroad and main roads that will go all the way to Europe. And it's a major infrastructure plan to create transportation corridor linking Persian Gulf to Europe via network of roads, railways, ports, similar to Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. It is not working well at the moment, but it is there. Okay, wow, this is another one, middle corridor. It's called Trans-Caspian International Transporter Route. It's a trade route from Southeast Asia and China to Europe via Kazakhstan, Caspian Sea, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Turkey. So that makes Turkey important between these two regions. Well, I don't know this part. I put those slides, but because Erdogan is a very talented leader. He has the great rhetoric for people who love him. For people who love him, he has the great rhetoric. He convinces people, and at the same time, he can also be in touch with Eastern part and the Western part. Because he's a conservative Muslim and the political party is a conservative Muslim. So that helps him to have connections with Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian Authority leader. And then this is just before 7th of October 2023. He had this, it is the New York meetings, you know, United Nations General Assembly meets regularly every year in New York City. So this was in the Turkish house. He was holding a meeting with Netanyahu because Turkish-Israeli relations has its ups and downs, but underneath there's always some trade going on with, between Turkey and Israel. But then at the same time he's close to the Palestinian side too. So he was hoping that he could become a mediator in the peace process. According to his last meeting with American President Trump, there's still hope. It may work, it may not work. I'm not sure, but he can be a good candidate for that because he's close to both sides. Same here. Turkey did condemn Russia, but was never said it was an aggressive state because Turkey had relations with Russia relations with Ukraine. So Erdogan was able to accommodate both Putin and Zelensky at the same time, trying to make a mediation between the two. So another issue is it can be Erdogan as a leader or somebody else, but probably he's a better candidate because he has his close connections with the Middle Eastern world, and he could be a great mediator. And when Markus said you have 2 minutes, that was my last slide. I hope it was easy to understand my lecture. Thank you very much.